Her Excellency Liubov Abravitova penned an impassioned letter which in part reads, "A year ago, Russians villainously attacked Ukraine. They stole old age from our parents and childhood from our children. We stand ready to fight for our existence as a nation and a country." The ambassador joins me now. Good evening and welcome to you. I suppose, how would you answer this question I'm about to ask? How are you and how's your family doing tonight?
Good day, good evening. Thank you. We are keeping strong.
You wrote about, in your piece, how, people think about what they would take if their homes had to suddenly be on fire. A philosophical question that we engage philosophically, and then it actually happening. How would you describe the spirit of your countrymen and women a year after their realities changed so radically?
We are more united. We are stronger. We are sure that justice and truth will prevail. We do believe in our future in our country. And we do believe that on each of us depends the future of our nation. I think Russians did something that they didn't anticipate. As you just quoted my open letter, that they did unite Ukraine, they did unite the democratic world, and they did give us a sense of those values for which we are living and existing.
Ambassador, you write very specifically about the unprecedented support that you received from the civilized world. You are thanking every single South African, every NGO, foundation and party that have supported Ukrainians. But it was stark in its omission of the South African government. How does our government's position, neutrality with calls for dialogue, sit with you now after a series of actions over the last year?
It will be not very strange that Ukrainian position is very much coinciding with the position of South African government. The dialogue is the only way to solve situations and conflicts. But always we have to look about the preconditions for those peaceful settlements. So let's clearly understand that Ukraine today in the position when it is under aggression, when we cannot overcome this ever without external support. And I'm not only talking about military support, I'm talking about diplomatic solidarity and democratic assistance and support. And that's where we are expecting all African countries, including South Africa, to stand firmly with a position, not for Ukraine, but for our joint values. We cannot allow to violate sovereignty and territorial integrity of states in 21st centuries just because someone likes or wants a part of your territory, isn't it?
So that would, in my mind, register that you really would have liked South Africa to have been stronger, even though you agree on those, baseline values or calls around diplomacy and dialogue. These preconditions that you say have to be in place, and I understand then that you would expect South Africa to be a little more vociferous or a little stronger on those.
We expect that those solutions that we are trying to find will be considered and supported by as many countries as it's possible. My president was very clear when he came up with the proposal of a 10-point peaceful plan. For us, as of today, this is the only way how we can how we could come to the table of negotiations in the future, because the war of Russia in Ukraine already has so many different dimensions. starting from implications in food security, nuclear security, but also the consequences of its crimes that definitely have to be checked, verified, and someone has to be responsible for all those atrocities that were happening in Ukraine and have been, by the way.
You speak quite starkly, in your article about that impact. So the wound is open in a way in terms of the consequences of this war, not just on the body of Ukrainians, but on the psyche as well. We've just held military exercises with Russia, our soldiers training alongside Russian and Chinese soldiers. Did that rub salt into the wound?
It is really deeply disappointing that while international community, including African countries, condemns the Russian aggression and strengthens isolation of Russia in order to put an end to war, in order to stop those killings of Ukrainian innocent people, to stop destruction that is happening. And it's not only the destruction of civilian objects, it's also infrastructure. During all the winter, through all the winter, our people were challenged by cold and absence of electricity. You understand that all this has further consequences. And now we see those military drills that are happening just at the time which coincides with 1 year of Russian invasion of Ukraine. We've seen the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine came with a very strong statement on these drills. And we believe that such an actions, providing platforms to Russian vessels that are carrying those unfamous letters V and Z that Russians are using while killing civilians in Ukraine, here in South Africa, that it gives the sense of impunity to Russians and encourages them to continue their invasion and their brutal war.
I mean, hearing you say that, in very plain terms comes across as South Africa has allowed the Russians to test weapons that they will use on your countrymen and women.
Yeah, absolutely. They will show exactly the same weapons that they are been using in Ukraine. So for me personally, it's painful, but it is really disappointing.
Perhaps if we can talk about one of the points you were really strong on, Ambassador, and was really keen to make in the piece that you wrote, was that this war gives Ukrainians and South Africans many opportunities. You also wrote, that through this war, people only learnt about the existence of Ukraine a year ago. Before that, they might have married it with Russia, even though you've been independent for 3 decades now, following the breakdown of the Soviet Union. It's forced people to confront their perceptions, hasn't it? What's been the most positive thing that's come out of this in terms of the way people perceive your country amongst South Africans?
It really sounds very strange, but there are a lot of positive things that came out. And when I was writing this article, I wanted to send a message of hope. I wanted to say that even in that bad circumstances, Ukrainians can keep positive and can see light in the end of this tunnel. And we know that we will again rebuild our beautiful country, and we will become the hub of opportunities. And I really sincerely want South Africa to take part in that process, because it has a potential for that, and because it will be for the future of and sustainable development of both people. That was the main message, basically, and you get it absolutely right.
Thank you for talking to us tonight. We appreciate your time. Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Ukraine to South Africa, Botswana and Mozambique, Liubov Abravitova.